On a bright summer day, two young boys, Tommy and Billy, sat perched on a weathered fence, carving arrows from sticks they had collected. The sun filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the ground below. Tommy, his eyes gleaming with adventure, says, "Let's do something exciting today." "What should we do?" asked Billy, a little more cautious but equally curious. Tommy exclaims, "Let's run off to the woods and be hunters." Billy, intrigued but hesitant, asks hunters, "What can we hunt?" Tommy suggests confidently, bears and foxes, though he had never seen either in their woods. "But Mullin says there aren't any around here," Billy points out. Tommy, undeterred, replies, "Well, then we can hunt squirrels and set traps for woodchucks." "But we don't have any guns or traps," Billy reminded him. Tommy said, pulling out a rusted but functional trap from his knapsack. "We've got our bows, and I found an old trap behind the barn." "What about food?" Billy asked, always thinking ahead. "We have our lunch, and when that's gone, we can roast the squirrels we catch and fish from the brook." "I know how to cook fish on a stick," Tommy assured him, grinning. "And how will we start a fire?" Billy inquired. Tommy answered proudly, patting his chest, "Got matches in my pocket." Billy considered the plan for a moment, then shrugged. "I've got some things we could use too." "Let's see what we've got." They emptied their pockets, displaying their little treasures on the ground: 2 pocket knives, some string, a handful of nails, matches, a piece of putty, fish hooks, and 2 dirty handkerchiefs. "Tommy, satisfied," said there. "That's a first-rate kit for hunters. With Mrs. Mullin's basket of lunch, we can last for a couple of days." Billy, who was always more cautious, asked, "But where will we sleep? Up in the trees or on beds of leaves, just like the heroes in our books?" "If you're too scared, you can stay home," Tommy teased, already cramming their belongings back into his knapsack. "Who's scared?" "Not me," Billy retorted, grabbing his fishing rod. No one was watching them as they snuck away from the farm. They decided to make their escape more dramatic by racing down the road, leaping over a stone wall, and dashing into the woods as if pursued by a band of wild Indians. "Do you know where we're going?" Billy panted after they had run for a while. Tommy declared, "Of course. The path winds up the mountain, but we shouldn't stick to it. Someone might see us and drag us back. We're going to be real hunters and have real adventures. We need to get lost and find our way by the sun and stars," Tommy continued. "But what if we really get lost?" Billy asked, his voice wavering slightly. Tommy replied, brushing off Billy's concern, "Don't worry, we'll be fine. We just need to stick to the plan." They continued on, leaving the familiar path and venturing deeper into the woods. As the sun began to set, the boys decided to set up camp. "Let's build a lean-to," Tommy suggested. "We'll need a shelter for the night." Billy gathered branches while Tommy found large leaves to cover the structure. After the shelter was built, they sat down to eat the sandwiches their mothers had packed for them. "This isn't so bad," Billy said, trying to sound brave. Tommy nodded, though he was beginning to feel a little homesick himself. When it got dark, the boys climbed into the shelter and tried to sleep. But the unfamiliar sounds of the forest kept them awake. Suddenly, they heard a rustling sound nearby. "Did you hear that?" Billy whispered, his voice trembling. "It's probably just a rabbit," Tommy whispered back, though he didn't sound convinced. The rustling grew louder, and they heard the snapping of twigs. "Maybe it's a bear," Billy said, his voice shaking. Tommy grabbed his knife, his heart pounding. But before they could decide what to do, the rustling stopped. Tommy stayed awake for a while, knife in hand, but eventually exhaustion took over, and he dozed off. The next morning, they awoke to the sound of birds chirping. "We made it," Tommy said, stretching and feeling a little more confident. "What should we do today?" Billy asked, already feeling a little braver in the daylight. Tommy suggested, "Let's explore further into the woods and maybe catch some fish for breakfast." They packed up their things and set off, feeling more adventurous now that it was light. The woods were dense, and the further they went, the less they recognized. "Are we lost?" Billy asked after a while, glancing around nervously. "No, we just need to find the brook," Tommy said, though he was beginning to doubt himself. But as they wandered on, the brook didn't appear, and the trees began to look more ominous. Billy started to panic. "Tommy, what if we never find our way back?" Tommy tried to stay calm. "We'll find it. We just have to keep going." Hours passed, and the boys grew tired and hungry. They had finished their lunch the day before and had caught no fish. The realization that they might be lost for real began to sink in. "What if no one ever finds us?" Billy asked, his voice trembling. Tommy, struggling to stay brave, said, "They'll find us. We just need to wait." But deep down, Tommy was as scared as Billy. They huddled together as the sky began to darken once more. As they sat there in despair, they suddenly heard voices calling their names. "Did you hear that?" Billy gasped, jumping to his feet. Tommy stood up too. "Over here," he shouted, his voice hoarse. They heard the voices again, closer this time. A group of searchers appeared through the trees, led by their parents. The boys ran into their parents' arms, overwhelmed with relief. "We thought we'd never find you," their mother said, tears in her eyes. Tommy and Billy clung to their parents, finally safe. As they were led back home, Tommy whispered to Billy, "Maybe next time, we should just play in the yard." Billy nodded. "Yeah, maybe we should." After a harrowing experience in the woods, Tommy and Billy are finally rescued by their worried parents. The boys, initially excited about their adventure, quickly realized how unprepared they were for the dangers of the forest. Their fear and exhaustion turned into relief and joy when they heard the voices of the search party. Reunited with their parents, the boys learned the importance of caution and the value of being prepared before embarking on any adventure. As they walked back home, they promised each other to think twice before venturing into unknown territories again. This story teaches an important lesson about the value of preparation and understanding one's limits. While adventure and curiosity are natural and exciting, it's crucial to recognize when situations are beyond your control and to take appropriate precautions. The boys' experience in the woods shows that sometimes it's better to be safe and stick to familiar ground than to rush into unknown dangers without a plan. It also highlights the importance of listening to advice and respecting the power of nature. If you enjoyed this story and found the lesson valuable, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to follow us for more stories like this. Your support helps us create more content to inspire and entertain you. Thanks for watching.